Hey everyone, this is Daniel, and this is a beginning of a three-part series that I'm doing. And in this one specifically, I'm going to talk about planning your SharePoint list relationships for the Power Apps. In the other two, I'll actually go ahead and show you how we can initially start building the app and get all these relationships together. And in the third one, I'll show you how you can start saving the data and get all these relationships also saved in the data over there. So that's the three-part series that I'll be doing over there. And before we jump into it, here's my intro. So here is the part one of my three-part series. And like I said, it is the planning of the SharePoint list relationships for Power Apps. Just to give you a little feedback, this actually came in high demand from my YouTube comments that I've been getting. People have said that, hey, you're so good at showing the patching, you're so good at showing how to build the forms, but can you actually explain to us how you're building these list relationships and kind of deep dive into that? Thank you for all that feedback that you've given, and I took that in, and it took a while for me to kind of formulate and plan this, and then now I've taken it to a whole different level. So in this, that's why I broke it down into three different parts as well. And then in this one, we're just going to focus on how do we just build a SharePoint list and plan their relationships over there. And then after the other two, we'll deep dive into the apps and then putting it together. So in the three-part series, I've already told you, this one we're going to go ahead and plan the SharePoint lists, planning of the SharePoint list, specifically their relationships, using that little trick which I'll show you over there. Then in the second one, we'll start the initial build of the apps. Basically, we'll start putting all the controls together, things such as galleries, and we'll tie all these relationships together so that the data all begins to match over there. And in the third one, we'll go ahead and actually finish building the app where we can make all the selections and then save that data in the SharePoint list. And we'll take all those relationships as well and save that over there so you can view it for future reasons. So that's basically the three-part series over there. Now, in this one, we're going to start preparing the SharePoint list relationships. I've already got a lot of it done, but I want to walk you through it so that you can do that over there. Now that's a quick SharePoint 101. Every time a SharePoint list is built, it by default comes with its own ID. And that's very important for you to know. I'll even show you, because what happens is when you build a list, you will always see the title on the top, and you'll see the title column is required over there. And you may not always see the ID column, but rest assured, it's by default there. And that's why SharePoint list becomes such a easier way to use the backend data source over there, because it already comes with these important things that you need over there. And then once you get this ID, we'll go ahead and start attaching the ID into different data locations, like lists and in one library, so you can make that relationships, all right? Now, this is the overview of the backend data. Remember, I told you that I'm going to actually, I really spent some time thinking through this, and I've gone ahead and now, expanded it so that you will get a really good idea that how you should plan to build these relationships. And once you get a good understanding over here, you'll be quite ready to go ahead and expand on your apps as well, or either take your existing apps and start working some of these formulas in it, or in the future apps, if you're using SharePoint as a data storage, you can come up with ideas like this. So in here, you can see that these are actually 9 lists that I'll be using, and then 1 image library, because I want to show you that scenario as well, that, hey, I'm using images. How can I go ahead and do that? Now, if you've already seen this, you kind of understand, hey, Daniel, this looks a lot like that app in the day that we've done. And you're right. The app in the day was actually a great place for me to start, because I wanted you to start working with something you're already familiar with. If you've not done app in the day, I've put the link in the description down there. I highly recommend that you go do that, because it's a great way for you to start getting familiar with building apps. So go get familiar with that, and then you can come and start over here. If you don't want to, this is also a great place to start, but I'm just throwing some ideas there. Now, that's what I was saying, that I've gone ahead and I really expanded on that topic, where instead of just having, 2, maybe 3 data sources over here, I've actually added 10 data source, one of them being a library. And this is just the overview of that. Now let's expand into what this is all about. Now, I've gone ahead and broken that down into 2 different sections, because one set of lists and that one library is actually a place where you only use for viewing purposes in the app. And you'll see what I mean, where basically in the controls and in the galleries, I'm just displaying the data. And that's why it's so important for me to have that data available. Otherwise, the display functionality won't work very well. But after I've gone ahead and done all the selections, I'm going to save that data in 3 other lists. And I'm breaking it down into 3 other lists, where one is the request that came in. What was the device that the user selected? That was, will be stored over there. And it'll have a whole bunch of relationship IDs over there. Then also any accessories that were selected in addition to the request. That will be stored in another list along with some IDs over there. And then finally, how do we want to get this shipped? That is also in a separate list, and it has its own IDs over there. But I want to show you now on a, you've understood this as a breakdown of what is being pulled data source for viewing purposes as against data source service for adding the data. I want to show you the relationship that you've got over here. Now remember, these are still those 10 sources over there, but one of them has a additional relationship ID. So let me, this sounds a little confusing. Let me explain that to you. Now remember, I just said that SharePoint list comes with by default its ID. And therefore, that falls on the left side, which is lists without relationships IDs. They already have their default ID over there, but they do not have those relationships IDs. And it's important because, things such as are already just pulled for viewing purposes. Usually they are the ones which do not fall, which, don't have these additional relationships. But there's also the ones on the one on the right where you, along with viewing some data, you will also have these relationship IDs that come in over there to make the viewing of the data more easier. And also these lists contain the places where you're saving the data. Now I know this is a little confusing because I'm breaking it down into just tables. So let me show you this. The matrix will really help the concept, kind of sink in over there. So I've kind of broken it down into 3 different sections. The first one are these primary sections, the one right below over there. These are the ones where all they have, it's either a list or a library, all they have are their, out of the box IDs and then the data. A great example over there is the MFRs list, which is on the left side over there. This one, all it has is the list of manufacturers. That's it. And it has the names over there and it has its primary ID. Now, another important one is the one on the bottom right, the images one. That is actually a image library where I'm just storing all the images over there. So if you kind of now understand that this is like the, the bottom or the primary section of the matrix where I've got the data and the data by default has this primary identifier or ID, and that's it. Next layer that comes around are these ones over here where it has its, the device list and the office location list over there. They have their own IDs by default, but they also have their identifiers for other things. So let's look at the office locations list over here. The office locations list, it has its own ID, but it is also referencing the location list over there. The location list comes ahead and the office location list is referencing the other location list over there, specifically for some things that it needs to pull. Now, device list, for its place over there, it has a column called URL. And that URL is referencing the image library list over there. So that's why the office location list and the device list falls in that second category over there. And then finally, the top 3 categories, the ones where we are storing the lists, I've put them on the top over there. They are also referencing all these other lists over there. Therefore, if you'll notice, like the request list on the top left, it will have the most number of IDs or identifiers over there. You'll actually see very little data stored over there, but you'll see a lot. I take that back. You'll actually see a little less amount of text or numbers over there, but you will see a lot of these relationship IDs over there because that's how you want to store the data. And then here is basically the overview of how everything connects, right? See the ones from the request, accessory request, it is tying into all these other ones over there from the request list as against the device lists over there. Same thing on the office locations ID. I said it is referencing the ID of the office locations over there. The request list has a lot more going on. It's going ahead and having all these relationships to that lower section of the matrix, the primary one over there. And then finding the shipping list over there. The shipping list is also referencing the request list. Now, I know this is a lot to take in, but it's very important for you to understand that this is how I have planned the matrix. This is how you should also kind of start considering the matrix, where don't just have one big list where it stores all the data, but you want to start breaking it down into different segments or different lists over there and build these type of relationships. So this is actually, if you've already kind of understood or getting a good idea, or not, just an overall idea that, okay, I get what Daniel's saying, is that build multiple lists, and in multiple lists start building relationships so that all the data is not stored in one place. That's basically all I need you to understand. I know I kind of gave you a lot more information over here, but this is for something for you to sink in later on. Just your big takeaway from this is that just don't do one list, do multiple lists and start building relationships among them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now switch over from this slide deck, and let's start showing you some of these lists in the back end. All right. So I'm going to switch that over here. I'm going to jump back. We're going to now go into our SharePoint list. Let me show you the completed app altogether. That way you kind of already have a good scenario of what things are going on. So here is the app. I know, like I said, it looks a lot like the app in the day device request, but I've almost taken that and I've, supersized it. Normally it only has 2, maybe 3 data sources. I've got 10 data sources over here. So I'll show you, I'll show you how the images library work over there, but let me do the demo. Now, for the sake of this one, you're going to see that the data is actually going to be stored in 3 separate list locations. This is the request place. The request place is where whatever was selected during the request gets stored over here. So you'll basically see 2 only big text ones over here, the title and the requester, and then and even the comments, but then there's a whole chunk of IDs coming in. The second one is, once Daniel has selected the device, what are the accessories that come along with it? So there's a list for that as well. And then the third one is the shipping. Now remember, this falls in that one separate category where I said that the one set of lists is just for viewing purposes, but there was those 3 lists where data is actually being saved. And these are those 3 lists over there: the shipping, the accessory request, and the request itself. That's the way where the data is being stored. So let me show you that example. All right, come over here. Here's the app. This is the home, actually the home is here, the main screen of the app. I'm coming in, I'm going to put in a new request. Coming in a new request, here's a gallery, nothing big and fancy, I'm just doing some relationships over there. But I'll come, let's say, to Dell. I'll look at Dell. I said, you know what, I think I'm going to select the Alienware. And now I'm going to come back over here. Now it just showed me right here, this is just showing me what I selected on the other place. But now I'm actually going to say, here are the accessories. I'm going to select them all. I'm going to say, this is a replacement to my previous Dell Alienware. And that's what I'll put in over here. So okay, I think I'm good for overground. Maybe I'll just go first class because I need that fast. I am going to save it to my home. Now, if I had switched over to office, it would have already given me some office names and locations. I'll go to home. And I'll go with my address here, 3 Main Street Boulevard. The city over here is Charlotte. I'll put that as NC 28262. Submit. Are you sure? Yes. Data is being saved. It comes back over here. Now, when I come over here in the initial requests, when I refresh that, it tells me, hey, this is what you selected, this was the requester, and then it's just giving me a whole bunch of IDs. Like it's referencing the manufacturer's ID, it's referencing the device ID, it's referencing the location ID, and then it's also referencing the shipping class ID over there. What was the shipping, whether it was overnight or things like that. Location was, what type of location did you select? I actually selected it to my home, so it's referencing that. And then the device ID is what kind of device was it. So that's the Dell Alienware and all the specs for that. And then the manufacturer ID was for the ID. So kind of understand this is that it helps to just have a list with all these relationships over here, the IDs, because you don't have a one big long list with all the data. The list is actually pretty small, but it's already accomplishing a lot of things. It's actually saving a lot of data, but it's making it in a nice, concise form over here. But that's on the request side, all right? Let's come back to there you go, on the access request. It did 2 things. All of the accessories that I requested, it broke them down into different rows or different list items, but it maintained the consistency of the request ID. Let me show you that. If I went back over here, see this one's request ID was number 2. And so this one is maintaining that relationship that, hey, these were all the accessories that were actually saved for the second actual request that Daniel picked over there. And then it's telling me what was here, and it's also maintaining the accessories, the list ID of the original accessory list. Now I'll come back to that. Over here, it's basically saying that, again, this is the original list ID number of the request, which is this one that I did, see request ID. It's maintaining that relationship, and then it goes ahead and puts in all the list information that I did. So remember, this is basically what I was saying, those three lists over there, that's the one where all the data is being saved. At the same time, when I'm saving the data, I'm taking all those relationships and saving that data as well. We'll cover that in the third video, right? So kind of get an overview of what I'm covering over here. It's kind of important that you understand the gist of this, that it's one app, 10 separate data sources, one of them being an image library over there, showing this data, and then when you're saving it, you're taking the data, but it's all this list ID relationships and storing it back over there. I know I'm constantly repeating this again and again, but it's very important that you kind of let that sink into your mind, because this will really help you make your apps more professional in the future. Again, you don't have to put all the data in one list. You break it down and you make it, and actually it helps to keep your app a lot more secure, because then it's not just one place for all the data to be stored over there, but it also helps in your app's performance and then in the growth of the app over there. Okay, so let's now jump into what is the focus of this video over here. And the focus of this video is planning of the SharePoint list. So like I said, I broke that down into 3 separate categories, and I'll go back to that area over here. All right. The 3 separate categories were this one over here, the initial ones on the bottom, all right? So I'm going to go back into those 2 different types of lists. This first is the list without the relationship IDs, which was these different categories over here, the one with this color over here. So let's go and take a look at those. First one that I want to show you, and that I'll spend actually a few extra minutes on that, is, Daniel, how did you manage the images for SharePoint? So I used the SharePoint's out-of-the-box images library. Some people have used document library. It's completely fine as well. I basically just came over here and I went to the document library or the app, and you can use the image library over there. It's completely fine to use the document library as well. All right. So as you can see, they're both the same. So I went to the images one and I already dropped some images, and I'm using this one place for everything. And I'll show you what I mean for everything. Like, for example, when I do the Acer, this is the place where I'm going ahead and storing the logo of Acer. Remember, the logo is this one over here. When I come back in, this is the logo. I'm catching that information. I also went ahead and stored in that place the document library, I mean the HQ or its headquarters. So if I come back over here, HQ's headquarters, I've also gone ahead and taken that actual image. This is not a link to anything, right? I've actually gone ahead and taken that image. It's a PNG file, and I've put it in this image library. But what I'm doing is I'm setting up 2 things: that what type of image it is. Was it the HQ image, or is it the logo image, or is it a device? And I'm telling the manufacturer style over here. You don't need to do this, but this came in very handy for me is when I was actually putting the images, and I'm trying to see what are the images that I have, and I want to split them up into categories and subcategories. I actually put them into 3 separate categories, but as I was building this, I noticed that these were the 2 main ones that I needed. I needed to know, what is this image type? Is it one for the device, or is it one for its logo, or is it one for the headquarters? So that's why I put that image type over here. And then I also needed to know what was the manufacturer. Now you, for your business reason, you may need to put a model one as well, go into categories and subcategories, but make that decision if you need that or not. And if you need it, go ahead and add that in over here, because it will help you for the future filtering in the galleries that you need. But the key thing for what I want to display over here is that this is my storage place for the images. All right. I'm not getting links to anything else. I'm actually taking whatever image I have and I'm storing this in my images library. Kind of understand that? And I'm going to show you an example, because I've gone ahead and put in my Microsoft one. So if I come over here to the manufacturer, I only have 2 images. I have the main image of which is the logo one and the headquarters one, but I need to put in now the images of my devices. I'm going to walk you through how to do that. So in my folder here, I have my images, and I'm going to come back to my model, and here is the Microsoft one. So these are the 4 images that I want to go ahead and put that in. So I'll come here now, and I'm just going to drag this way. I've got the images library, and the beauty of SharePoint is I go ahead and grab all of them, drag it, drop it, and as you can see over here, it is going ahead and updating those diagrams. It went ahead and updated 2 first, went ahead and updated all 4 of them. It's uploading, and now it's done. So if I come in, they usually come in way on the top because I filtered it based on the modified date. So here are the 4 that came in on the few seconds. Now what I need to do is I'm going to go ahead and do the quick edit. So I did the quick edit, and based on the quick edit, it actually went ahead and dropped it down. So I can go back and move from newer to older. So it goes ahead and filters it back over there. Filtered it, gave me those 4 back away here. Now I'm going to do this. This is an actual device. So I left that in here. And one thing I should have told you is that these were actually a choice type column that I added in SharePoint lists. You could put that as a single line of text and type that in. Choice type just made it easier over there. But I did choice type as just a single selection. So this is also a device. The Surface Pro 128, the Surface Pro 64, all devices. So went ahead and dropped that down over here. Now, this is the manufacturer. The manufacturer we know is Microsoft. Now, the other thing I could do is I could just grab this and I can drop it down as well. And even that works. So do whatever helps. You want to do it one at a time, or you want to do it all at a time. Do whatever it works. Sometimes, depending on the browser or internet performance, you may have some issues over there. But either way, you just do it one at a time. And once you're done, you just go and click on exit, and it gets done over there. So in this case, I seem to be having a little bit of problem because I guess it's internet performance or whatnot. So we'll just come back over here and just do that over here. Okay? Go back to the quick edit, and we'll just play it the easy way by doing it one at a time and get that done. Yep. And I've got all of them here. Now I've left the 3rd column over there for models. I don't need it for this sake, but I've gone ahead and at least put that over here. So it is now finished and it's going ahead and working it, but we're not done yet. Remember, I've just put images in an image library. Now what I need to do is reference it to my device list. So let's focus on the device list. My device list now again falls into this other category. The device list, it's not the primary one over here, all right? It's actually at a secondary level because the device list is now, its URL is actually referencing the image that we just dropped in, all right? So we've kind of now taken it to the next level over here. And since these are related, I'm jumping it straight to that secondary level. So I'm going now to my devices. And what I've done is, just to save you some time, I've already gone ahead and saved, done a legwork amount of work over here. So let's pay a little bit of attention on that. I went ahead and grabbed in this device list, the only information I have is the manufacturer's ID. Now the manufacturer is a primary list over there. The primary list was I went ahead and just put in all the manufacturer's information, which is right here. Is basically the manufacturer's name, which is the title, and then their ID. That's it. I'll show you the URLs. The URLs what actually came from that images library. So let's actually just go back to that image library over here. And in the image library, there is the one, say for HP, or the Toshiba is a good one. You click on it. When you click on it, it displays the image, but the URL is just way too long, and that's not the URL that you need. You want to now click on the view original. And the view original will actually end with the image name dot the image extension or the image type. And so this is the one that you want to grab and copy. All right. So we'll come back and do that now for those Microsoft ones that we've put in. So let's go up and these are the 3 that we just added. So I'm going to come now for the Surface Pro, and just to make sure in this devices area over here, I'm coming to the manufacturer name. I'm just going to filter it by Microsoft. That way I just see those. And here are the 4 that I have for Microsoft. As you notice, that I've already got the information. This was just a simple, all of them were simple line of text over there. So I created the device name, the device types, and just put all the data. That was the easy part, okay? Just like an Excel spreadsheet. The one I wanted to focus on is in this photo library. The photo library is, and this is important for SharePoint. I come over here to the list settings over here. And in the photo library that I see over here, it is actually a hyperlink or picture. So when I click on that, you need to select it as a picture type. That's what's required on the Power Apps to display that image. You kind of want to understand that over here, all right? So I've got that list over there. Another little tidbit that I want to throw is anytime you're using those relationship IDs, like the big ones that I've talked about, you want those columns to be a number type column. Don't use that as a text column, because if you do use it as a text type of columns, you're going to run into delegation problems in SharePoint, in Power Apps over there. So switch that over to, anytime you're referencing these ID columns, switch that over to a number type column over here, and then you won't have delegation issues in Power Apps, okay? Kind of very important tidbit that I want to throw over there. So let's come back now to our devices. It should already, okay, this filter dropped, so come back over here, filter by, go pick our Microsoft, apply that. We have these three, and now I'm going to do a quick edit. First one is the Surface RT 32 gigs. Let's go back to our images library, and it is the Surface RT 32. So I'm going to click on that. Remember, I'm going to click on the original image, and I got this. I've clicked on it, doing a Control-C for copy. Come back now. Let me just close this one. Come back here, and in the photo, I'm going to select it, and I'm going to paste it. When I select it, these two already come up. All I need to do is paste it on the link. That's it. And I can hit the check, and it saves it over there. So let's finish the other three as well. This is RT64. Come back over here. All I got to do is I can close this tab. Here, I need to go back. And now I need the RT, which one do I need? I need the RT64, RT64. Click on the view original, grab just the link that I need, clicked on it, Control-C, came back over here. Moment I click on it, it did two things. It went ahead, the one on the top over here, its URL automatically went ahead and changed the picture into an image or a photo. Remember why? Because when I went in the photo, I didn't select the URL, I selected the photo icon. Here, again, remember, you just click on the link and you're done. Save it. And right now it still shows up as a URL, which is fine, because watch, when I go now and get the Surface Pro 64 gig, I can go ahead and basically close this guy, come back over here, go back. I need the Surface Pro 64 gig, select it, get the actual original, get that, come back over here. And the moment I do this one, the top one is going to go ahead and get, the actual image. So it's pretty simple and straightforward. Just need to do it over there. All right. So come back. And now the last one we need is the Pro 128 gig. So come back and close this one. Come over here, go back, and now get the Surface Pro 128. Click on it. You got to go click the original one, get the URL, get it over here. And when I click on this, the one on the bottom to add it, you'll see this one shows up. Almost on the link. And there we are. So once I've done that, I can click on quick edit, and now we've got all the links over here. So in the Power App now, I've also got the, I'll be able to see the images of these ones over here. So the key thing I did over here was I went ahead and now saved the images in my SharePoint. I know I can do that in bulk, but I had to do that. I know that in the images section, you had to manually go and add the metadata, which was what was the device. Was it an HQ or was it a logo? You had to go ahead and put that a device type as well. That's just a little bit amount of manual work that you have to do, but that is important. You got to get that done over there. And think about it. You would have to do that anywhere, whether you put that on the CDS or you put that on Azure Blob Storage. You would have to go ahead and add the metadata to yourself. So if SharePoint is your focus for whatever reason, licensing a big one over here. Remember, we dropped it in the document of the images library. We grabbed the original link, the one which ends with the file name and the file extension. And then we came over here to the photo column. It is a photo column, not a URL. We pasted it over here. So this is the important one that we did on that one. So I'm going to go back to that slide deck, and we can see that we were able to now get the images, and then we got the images URL, and we put it on the devices one. And now all these other ones are basically just simple lists. So let's run through those really fast, all right? And here for the manufacturers, when I come back over here, I've got a manufacturers one. A very simple, basically we went ahead and added the title. And guess where I got the URL? I got it from the images library. So it's just a very simple and straightforward one over there. Next one again is the shipping class. Shipping class is a very simple, it's just got 3 little items. It tells me what type of shipping I'd need. Is it a ground, first class, or overnight? If you remember, I went and selected overnight for the demo I did. This is where that data is coming from. Finally, then it's the location list. This location are all the types of locations. Remember, I've selected home for that, but you also had the options for apartment, home, or office. This is where you grab that. Remember, all of these by default come with their IDs as well. We already looked at the images library over there. And then finally, let's end with the accessories list. Now, the accessories list is a pretty big list over there. But in the accessories list, I've also got the information about where what is the device type, and then what is also its title, and is it an Acer? What is it, a all-in-one or Ultrabook over there? What exactly, which Acer is it? Is it an Acer U or Acer M? But then this is what's unique. So if you think about it, one line together with all the information is what makes that line unique. If you just look at all-in-one, well, that's not unique because there's a bunch of all-in-ones over here. If I look at Acer U, well, that's not unique because there's 2 Acer units over here. But if I look at all of these together, that's what makes it unique. And you need to understand that, because when you set up relationships, we will be using all these in the filter function over there. All right, so it'll make sense. I'll save that for the next video over there. So I want to jump up a little bit and now look at these the office locations as office locations list. So in the office locations list over here, we go to the office locations. There are only 12 of them over there, but it's grabbing the location ID. So this location ID was coming from here. So I wanted to basically say that if you ever selected 2, then in 2, if you selected offices, which is 3, then for that one, you've got all these options over there, because location 3 ID stands for offices on the location one. And moment I did that, I was able to go ahead and get this this relationship. Basically, might make more sense if I go to the app over here. If I come back over here, if I selected offices, I'm seeing this over here because this is setting up that relationship. This is number 3 in that list, and these are all those number 3s. I didn't have anything for home, so that's why I was able to switch it over to add your address. But I also don't have anything for 2. So that's why I put that in over here. So it's making sense how these relationships are working out over there. But let's keep pushing forward, all right? We looked at the images, we looked at office locations, we looked at devices list. That's like the secondary level. It's talking to the third one. Now let's look at the final and the third level over there, which are the places where data is going to be saved. Now I'm going to start closing some of these so we don't get too confused. But those 3 of them were the places where we are storing the requests which came in, which is this one over here. We're also storing the accessories that were selected, and we are storing the shipping. So let's first look at the requests over here. So on the requests, we've got basically just 3 things, right? The title which was selected, and I use the title because that's the default one which SharePoint gives. I can't delete it, so I said I'm just going to go ahead and use it. I picked in the requester because I need to know who requested it. One thing extra that you can do on your side is do the request and maybe even add the manager, other things. That's something you can do on that. And then I wanted to put some comment over there, right? Because it might be, hey, for the shipping side or for the request that this needs to be expedited, or I am completely dead in the water right now, I need a new laptop. You got to give the end user some flexibility, and therefore comment comes in really handy. So therefore I put in the comment function, comment section over there. But if you've noticed, there is now, in addition to its out-of-the-box primary ID, I've also got 3 other IDs. And that's the beauty of these relationships over there, because now I don't have that long list with all these columns over there. I just have these simple ones, because now manufacturer ID is 3. Well, let me go see what that manufacturer ID is. It's manufacturers over here, and its ID number 3 is Dell. So now I know that, hey, Daniel selected manufacturer ID number 3, and that ID number 3 matches, it's got a relationship with this one, and that's a Dell. So I could immediately now, just putting that manufacturer ID, set a relationship with that other list, and I know what that manufacturer ID is. Same thing on the devices ID over here. Device ID is fantastic because I've just put in device ID 37, but if I go now to devices, and if I scroll down in the ID, because it's the device ID, the column name is device ID over there, but I'm already in the devices. So I just got to look for devices ID number 37. Scrolling, and there you go. That's that Alienware 18 that I selected. But just by this one relationship of 37 now, I can go ahead and pull all this information over here. And this makes it so much more easier for you to save the data and to build that relationships in Power App. In fact, at the last video, I'm even going to show you how this will really help you make your Power BI reports so much more easier and efficient. Because some of it, Power BI is smart enough to already do the relationships, but I'll save that for the last video if we have time. Or I may make a fourth video. We'll see. But for you, the key thing was, in our list of requests, all I had to put in was device ID number 37, but the 37 goes and gets all this information. See, doing the relationships over there. And then the final one was, well, not the final one, over here in the location ID. Location ID is 2. Well, let's go see what location ID is. Locations was here, and 2 was for my home. So now I know that number 2 was number 2 over here. Now, you may think that, well, you put number 2 over there, but the number 2 was just a title. So did that really help? Home is an interesting scenario. It really didn't help that much. But say if I'd selected office, then office number 3 would actually go ahead and get me the full address of that office. So even though in the quick example that I did, all I selected was home, it is very important that I selected the home over there, but I have a place now to put all that data over there, which is the list and everything. And actually, I'll show you that because it did help. I went ahead and did that location ID over here, but I also have the shipping class ID. The shipping class ID is, actually, let me stop and come back to the location ID. The location ID was 2, right? 2 is just a home, but we've got the final one over here. I mean, the actual shipping location. Shipping location is where I'm saving the data. It's picking the request ID 2, but it's telling that, hey, this is related to request ID 2. Request ID 2 was for the shipping, and I can go ahead and save all the data. Again, it's a little bit sometimes more information for you to absorb in this one video, but the IDs helped build that relationship. And it's important because you see it over here. I was able to go ahead and actually just grab from the shipping, its request IDs. I was able to go ahead and use the saving location ID and the shipping ID, and now I have all the information of where it is being stored, where it is getting shipped, and so on and so forth. Very important to understand this matrix over here. And then the final one was, go back to my request list, was the shipping class ID. And the shipping class ID was whether it was first class or overnight. Again, reference to the other section over there. The final accessory request was, I wanted a way to go ahead and save and make it easier to see how many accessories that I've selected. And now I don't care how many accessories are selected because I don't need to add extra columns. They automatically just become extra rows. And that becomes really helpful when we come back to this list over here, because this information is coming from an accessory list. And I could say for this device, I could have 5 accessories. I'm completely fine, because no point now will I be able to miss or skip any of my rows that I have over here. Like I would say in my initial planning, I would say that, man, I will, if I did use columns over here, I would say that I only planned for 3 selections, but this guy went and selected 5 accessories. I am out by 2. I will never run into that problem because I'm not saving it based on the columns. I'm saving it based on the rows over here. So there, now I've already gone ahead and taken care of the fact that this is, whether they selected 3, I've got a unique identifier, which is by the default from the SharePoint list, but I've already tied that to the request ID. See, the request IDs are the same, and I've already tied that to the accessory ID over there. So it really, really helps. Once again, just to go and take a look at this, this is what the relationship was, and I've walked you through it. There were 10 storage places. There were 9 of them. 9 of them were SharePoint lists. 1 of them was an image library. In the image library, I went ahead and took the data. I clicked on each of them, and I got the URL. The URL, see that URL over here? I saved that in the devices URL. And now in the devices list, when I go ahead and when I pull that into the Power App, I actually get the image over here. And that's basically what you're seeing is in the in this section. This is coming from that devices list, and I'm getting that image, but the URL of this image is coming from another image library. So that's why you might think that, Daniel, this looks like maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Where are the other 5 coming from? It's because of things like that which is happening in the back end. There's 3 different places we are storing it, so that's 3 more 8. But things about why the images library, that's 9, and then also the extra things we save and submit. That's why it's important to break that down into 10 different places. Remember, 7 of them are just to view the data. 3 of them are to actually store the data. So hopefully this information was helpful. this is how we went ahead and did all the planning of the matrix using purely SharePoint lists and SharePoint libraries. This was basically the places. There were, first we went ahead and did just the viewing of the data to the adding of the data. Some of them had their own out of the box IDs, but the other one had relationships IDs. And then this is how we went ahead and set up the matrix over there. The bottom layer, which is IDs, going ahead and getting those, and how they are interconnected. Now in the next videos, the next one, I'll be covering this section over there, the initial build of the app. Now you've already seen the app. In that app, I will start building it. We may not make it that fancy, we'll see. But I want to at least go ahead and say that initially how we went ahead and grabbed that list, that's device that I selected, how that device now takes us to the next screen, and then what are the accessories that are tied to it. When I go ahead and based on the accessories, I want to show you that when the accessories are selected, how they are saved, and then what are the shipping places and the locations. We'll build at least the shell of the app tied to all those connectors. And in the third video, I'll show you how we can save it and we can get all the information here. But now those are the next two videos. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, leave in the comments. Remember, the app in the day also, I've got that link down there. So if you want to start playing with that, go ahead and do it. But hopefully this was helpful. And as always, keep power apping.